So without further ado, I would like to introduce our speakers. Kevin and Sadhna Cordell, did I say your name right? Founded Madison Management Services, LLC in 2007. They originally started as a private money lender for real estate investors, and the company has grown into a mortgage servicing company specializing in servicing loans for private investors and helping lenders with seller financing. Founder and CEO Kevin Cordell has over 25 years of experience working with financial software and over 20 years of experience as a real estate investor, and 20 years of management experience as director of financial and HR systems. Thanks for making this big for me, by the way. So they founded in October 9, 2007 in New Jersey, founded by Kevin and Sadhna Cordell. They relocated to Reno in 2019 and focus on servicing residential loans, privately owned and operated. Would you guys like to come up and go ahead and get started? I'll get your presentation now. Welcome. So let's see if you go down. We'll go to the next slide. Okay. If you need, there's a pointer. I don't know. Use the waters.
Okay, as she introduced us, I'm Kevin Cordell. This is my wife and partner, Sadhna Cordell, and we started the company in 2007. So just a little primer before we get there. I, like a lot of you, thought that the road to riches were in real estate. My uncle lives in the Bay Area. He owned rental properties, and that's something that I had wanted to do. So after we moved to New Jersey in 2007, 2003, we bought our first rental, a condo. In 2005, we bought a duplex, and then we bought a little apartment unit. And then we started going to some real estate meetings and learning more about how to make money in real estate. And I was surprised at all the different ways of making money in real estate, like mobile home parks, or selling mobile homes, owning strip malls, billboards, selling houses, wholesaling, wraps, a lot of things. And during those meetings, I had met some gentleman who told me about that he was buying notes from an investor out of New York. He gave me the website URL and the telephone number to get on to listen to the calls. And I was like literally surprised. Wow, I can buy bank notes. I'm all in for this. I'm all in. No more tenants, no more toilets, no more turnover. And so we had started this LLC originally to be a private money lender. We quickly decided that we're just going to be a loan servicer as we started buying loans. So we went over this. We're a non-bank specialty servicer. The both of us are also loan originators in many states. We focus on servicing residential loans, although we do have some commercial loans that we do servicing for. That's just a little bit about us. And my mentor on these calls had said there were two ways of making money. One is in oil and the other is in banking. And he said, I like banking, and like that, I like banking, and I'm going to let her tell you all about how to be the bank.
Okay. So, how to become a bank? I already heard a couple of people here doing notes, so that's great. You already have an understanding of this. It's really basic, starting out new for somebody who really doesn't know very much about notes and how to do them. So it might be boring for you. So I'm sorry about that. But how do you become a bank? Okay. And what are the advantages? And then also, what is a note? First thing to understand is what is a note? When we say we are servicing notes. Okay, these are mortgages for homes. So for example, you buy a property, residential property, as a private investor, but you don't have the money for it. You get a loan, right? You get a mortgage and a promissory note, which is the promise to pay. And so it might be a senior lien or a junior lien, but you get a mortgage. So what we did before was private lending. We would lend you the money because banks make it very difficult to lend, especially if you're buying it as an investment. And then we quickly switched into servicing because we realized we were very good at it. He was very good at it, I learned. And so he did the servicing part and I did the accounting part. And that was just the two of us in a room doing our own business and doing our IT jobs on the side. Well, the IT job was the main thing that brought us the money, and the notes was on the side. So we bought one and it paid off like soon after. Doubled our money, more than doubled our money. We bought two notes. And just from there, now we've built up our own portfolio. So he's dialing and calling borrowers, pretending to be a mortgage company, and I am doing the accounting for it. And then within a couple of months, we have to hire a person. So we have to get an office. And then we realized, we need another person. So we got a bigger office. And here we are in Rigna now. So anyway, going back to promissory note and mortgage, so that is what we refer to as a note. In short, it's promissory note and a mortgage. And it could be a senior lien or a junior lien. So senior lien is basically the primary or it's the
first loan.
The first lien, correct. And it has certain advantages. It is less risky because it's secured, and the junior lien is more risky and usually a higher interest loan. So junior lien could be a HELOC on your property. So say you've got a house that needs some rehabbing. You go to the bank and get a second loan, a HELOC, and that's your junior lien. And it also refers to the recording order. And it has certain advantages, the senior lien over the junior lien if there's a foreclosure. That's a topic in itself, so I'm not going to cover it. If you want to talk about it later or at another time, we can always do that, but it's very lengthy and I don't think we have enough time for that. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Okay, so we want you to talk about notes versus landlording. When we're talking about how to become a bank. So, landlording, most of you know because you're doing most of you are doing real estate. Tenants, toilets, and turnover. We've done it, been there, done that. There are property issues. You have to make sure taxes are paid, insurance is on the property, the water is running, the water bill's getting paid, and all that. Evictions, we dealt with that. Not once, not twice, several times. And it was because we probably weren't doing a good due diligence. But we had to go to court several times to evict, and that's such a painful thing to do. And of course, loss of rent during that time frame. So mortgage note versus, notes versus landlording. So mortgage notes are passive income without property management. So you basically own a note, right? You bought a note from a bank, say. Now, the borrower is not going to call you to say, my toilet's broken or my roof is leaking, because it's the borrower's problem now. It's not your problem anymore. There's a reduced risk of property-related issues, so they're responsible for paying the taxes, they're responsible for paying the insurance and all that, so you don't have to worry about it. You do, as a lender, have to worry somewhat about it because you want to make sure that the taxes are paid and it doesn't go into a tax lien, and you also have to make sure that the insurance is paid, but you're not the one who's shelling out the money, they are. And you can usually buy a note for a lower initial investment. So here, earlier we saw, what is the medium range now? Medium price? 582. Well, 582, I could probably buy like at least 3 loans. So we diversify, right? So now you could buy 3 loans in 3 different states, but here you only have 1 property and 1 tenant, or maybe 2 if you have multi-property, multi-unit rental. So there's a lower initial investment. Of course, you can go for $1 million note too, but most of the investors who are newly getting into this business will buy smaller loans. We see a lot of $60,000, $70,000, and even lower in case it's a HELOC. Some HELOCs are like $25,000, $17,000, and I'll have an example of after this that'll show you. I bought one myself, and that's a real life example. I'm not just going to give you something vague or made up. It's a note that I bought recently. What was it, 2 months ago? And there's a potential for higher returns. So now in a $582,000 property, what is the rule? 1% should be the rent, right? Are you really going to get $5,800 unless it's a short-term rental? You're not going to get $5,800 in rent, right? So, but in a loan, if you have a note, you could easily, compound that because you're earning interest. And we'll get to that. I don't want to, get sidetracked with that. Liquidity options. There are a lot of options. Now, property you can sell to somebody, right? Or you can rent it. A note, I can do a lot more with it. I can sell it. I can sell a partial of it. So I say I have a loan that's $140,000. I can sell 70 or 90 payments to you and keep the rest. That's called a partial. Or I can sell the entire loan. Or I can keep it for cash flow. So there are a lot of different, and you can, there's several other options. Can you think of any more?
Yeah, you can, what they call hypothecate, so you can use your promissory notes as collateral to get a loan from a bank that does that. Use that money to do something else with it, and you're still collecting on your loan, but now you can use that revenue to pay off the loan that you took out from this bank, or you could even sell some of them and just pay off the loan from the bank. But that's another option.
Or you can keep it for cash flow like we do. We've built up 2 portfolios, and you keep doing this over and over and over, and now you have loans that are going to pay for the next 30, 40 years. And we don't really need to depend on any Social Security or whatever. We have our portfolios that are performing, and we don't have to worry about toilets and turnovers and such. Then we also have foreclosure rights. Now, of course, they're borrowers. Decide one day, they got a divorce, they don't have the income, can't pay. Lost a job, COVID happened, I can't pay. So that happens. but you have the option to foreclose. And that's where the senior lien versus the junior lien comes in. If you have a senior lien, you're ahead. Besides IRS taxes, you're in the priority position. You're in the first priority. So say if the house is worth $300,000 and you sell it for $300,000, you get paid. But the second lien was for $25,000 for a home equity loan, they get wiped off. They don't get it. So that's why, when you're buying loans, you have to kind of evaluate, what you're buying. And that's very high level, very, very high level, because a $300,000 loan the loan is $300,000, but the property might be worth $400,000, right? But that's a concept that we can get into later. Unless somebody has a question, we're going to answer questions. So, because, nobody gets a $300,000 loan on a $300,000 property. So you have to put down some money. So there is already equity to start with. Tax advantages. So in some cases you can defer your taxes for future. And there is the other concept of buying use your self-directed IRA money to buy properties. So you don't pay any taxes until you have to withdraw the money.
Excuse me, is that like qualified intermarriage? A QR, yeah, is that similar to that or exactly like that?
What she's saying is that you have a self-directed
Well, no, if
IRA.
you have like in real estate, if I bought a piece of property and all the profit and I can stick into this account, then I have no taxes on it until either I move the money somewhere else or buy it, because if I buy another piece of property, I have no tax in that. I don't pay any taxes on it. So I could move it in that way. Can I buy notes like that too, move it into that tax advantage account?
Yes.
And then when I want to go buy another note, I don't have to pay capital gains or nothing because I'm just shifting the money back and forth. Okay.
You can do it.
Exactly. That's what a self-directed IRA. So a traditional IRA, you can only buy stocks and bonds. A self-directed IRA, you can buy real estate. The only thing you can't buy are like stamps and some certain art collectibles. But you can use that to buy real estate or notes. And when you sell the property or you collect the money in your note, you don't have to pay any taxes because the tax is deferred until you reach whatever it is now, 72, 73, and you're forced to withdraw the money. Then you pay taxes, hopefully at a lower tax rate at that time, unless you get a Roth IRA, in which you don't have to pay any taxes at all on the money that you put in, that you earn, and the interest that it earns while it's in there.
But maybe you can clarify, because if it's not in a qualified account, there's, as far as I know, there's no 1031 exchange for notes,
Correct.
right? So it's only the benefit if it's in the qualified account.
Mhm.
But a lot of people think, oh, if I sell this property, now I've got the money in the QA, now can I just buy notes out of that? And it doesn't really work that way.
Kind of not
Correct.
like for
You're
like.
100% right. I'm sorry?
I said it wasn't like for like, so it's
Yeah,
not,
it's not.
it's not under 1031 exchange.
Correct.
The other issue with retirement accounts is if you have to add money. If you have to have money, you sometimes disqualify the account. Like negative cash flow
Mhm.
or a roof or something like that. Yeah. So it's just something you have to watch.
Yeah, so a disclaimer, we are not IRA experts
Yeah.
in any way, shape or form. What we speak about is from our own experience because we both have our own IRAs and we use self-directed IRAs.
Are all your mortgages here in Nevada now?
Oh, no,
All over?
all over the country.
Let me ask you, did you buy some software to manage that, or did you develop your own? It sounds like you're in software.
No, we have, we always started with some specialized software for servicing loans.
Who do you use, do you know?
Currently, I'm using the mortgage office
Okay,
through Applied Business Software.
okay.
I started with one called Notesmith.
Mhm.
Some of you heard that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good for managing a couple of notes, but as soon as you start getting a lot and then you start servicing loans for somebody else, it just doesn't work. So
Sure.
We've gone through, this is our third package of, that we've gone through for servicing loan, keeps track of everything. We apply all the payments, keeps track of the principal and interest list, keeps track of all the charges,
Sure.
et cetera, everything on the loan.
The carryover's good.
This
And in
was-
Nevada, who do you use as a trustee?
We don't have any loans in Nevada.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we just haven't bought in Nevada.
Okay.
We have a lot of Ohio, Florida,
Gotcha.
California.
So just a little quick side on that. So when we were buying the loans, or if you were buying the loan and it happened to be a Nevada loan, the trustee is whoever was originally on the note. And when you have to foreclose, the attorney you hire to do the foreclosure of the trustee will file a substitution of trustee and continue on.
Okay, so tax advantages are there. Less exposure to market conditions. So in a real estate, you have, you're very dependent on market conditions. If the value of the property goes up or down, you're concerned. Rental property is affected the same way. Rental market is affected the same way, right? From demand and supply. How much the demand is, supply, and whether the property values are going up or not. So in notes, you don't have to worry about it. You have a steady income. My borrower pays me $415 every month without fail, right? Whereas in if it was a rental, now I might have to lower the rent because there is a lot of supply. Okay, so here is an example, and this is a non-performing note. So NPN is a non-performing in Struthers, Ohio. So the UPB was $47,645.08.
So,
What's the UPB? What does that mean?
It's unpaid principal balance. So the original might have been 180, but when we bought it, it was 47,000 was left.
So you mostly buying on the back end of their life?
Not necessarily. Whenever we get a good yield, we'll buy it.
The software tells you what those yields are.
No,
So-
I calculated.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there is a lot of due diligence involved upfront.
Oh.
So, I mean, it sounds easy to buy notes, and it is. But
It's easy to get in
Just-
trouble also.
But you also have to do your due diligence, right? Just like I said earlier, we went through a lot of evictions because we didn't do our due diligence on getting the right people. We didn't check the credit scores. We didn't do the check on whether they'd been paying rent at the prior rental place that they had. So in notes, due diligence is very, very important. Right, Don?
Yes, ma'am.
You make one mistake and you could regret it. So the interest rate was 9.85%. The purchase price was $24,000. So that's another benefit of buying a note. You get it at a discount, right? You buy a property, $582,000. Maybe you'll get a $5,000 discount, maybe, but not in a market like we had before, where people were bidding higher. We bought a property in 2019, and we bid higher than, otherwise we weren't getting any. We had to bid higher than it was listed for. So we got this at a discount. The yield was 22.5%. Okay? So where do you get that kind of a yield? Right? You don't. You put your money in a banking checking account. What are you getting? 0.0001%? Hardly anything. Few cents every month. Several strategies. So this was a non-performing loan. That means that the borrower was not paying. okay?
You got it
Non-perform-
that way?
Yes.
Okay.
So non-performing loans, people buy non-performing loans a lot. And that's because you can buy them at a lower price. You get a better discount. So now we've transitioned more to performing loans because we have a business to run and we don't have time to manage that. Although we have employees, but our stuff gets neglected. So we have to make sure that we manage those as lenders. So, but non-performing notes are great, but again, due diligence. Make sure. Yes.
Just trying to understand this. So you have this loan, outstanding loan, $47,000. The monthly payments, $455. I see the interest rate. So you're saying that you bought this loan for $24,000?
Correct.
Okay. And it's not performing. Does that mean somebody's not paying on it?
Correct. The
Correct.
borrower wasn't paying.
And what do you do there?
So,
Uh,
so what happened?
Dial.
I don't understand.
So let me explain.
Yeah, please.
So what happens is, this loan was being managed by Bank of America. The borrower stopped making payments. Guess what? Bank of America doesn't even bother. Maybe they'll call once, twice, and then not call.
Okay.
At the end of the year, they have to sell those notes, right? Because they have to show profit on their books.
Yeah.
So they sell it to an equity firm. Equity firm takes a whole bunch of loans and sells them, one here, two there. They just sell them at a very high discount, and that's when you get such good discounts.
Kind of like debt consolidation. If somebody's late on their credit card payments, they'll sell the debt to
They
some
sell
like a
that
third
debt
party
too. Mhm.
company to go collect it. They'll sell
Yep.
it at a discount. That's kind of similar.
Yep,
Okay.
same thing.
Yeah. So what due diligence did you do to have a comfort level by that?
So when she talks about due diligence,
Yeah.
you need a title report. So you need to know who's on title, how many loans are on the property, and such. You get a BPO, so you get either a realtor or a company to go by and check out the property, send you pictures and give you an estimated value. You can check out and then you can use online resources to check out the neighborhoods and such. You get the when you're buying, say from the fund, you ask them for all the details, including whatever they have. They have a BTPO. What's the payment history? I want to see a copy of the notes, the mortgage, the payment history, the title policy, all that. You look at all that and you evaluate it, and for your comfort on the risk and the bid price that you want to pay for it. If you don't like it, you don't buy. If you like it, you negotiate and buy. And as she talked about between first lien and second lien, I started buying junior liens because they were really cheap. And that was just calling people and saying, hey, you owe this money, and negotiating either a payoff or a payment plan.
And that's what we specialize in, because we're not Bank of America or Wells Fargo. We will call, our customer service team will call people and listen to them. People have a story. People just don't stop making payments, right? Something happened in their life. COVID happened, divorce can happen, you can lose your job, any number of things, right? Medical issue. Something happened. So we listen to them and say, okay, tell us what happened. Why did you stop making payments? Then you work with the lender and say, what can the lender do? So if we're the lender, I'll say, okay, they have a temporary situation or is it a long-term situation? Can I give them a loan modification? Can I give them a forbearance? Can I give them a trial payment plan for a year and see if they perform? And then I'll do a loan mod for them. I'll reduce the interest rate is 9.85. I have, room to lower the interest rate, maybe to 8%. It's still a great rate for me, 8%, and it'll be a great rate for them. And the payments will be reduced. I could also say, okay, you haven't made a payment in 3 years when I bought the loan. So you owe all this interest. I can capitalize that. So say now I'll capitalize that over on the 47,000 at the interest that was owed. And now I'm going to have a higher yield.
Do you have some examples of performing loans also?
Yes.
Commissioner?
I'm going to come to that, and that's my real life loan that I did. So this loan we bought a while ago. You were getting much better discounts. Right now there's a shortage, but it's cyclical like anything. So the discounts are lower. You might not get 22% yield, maybe you'll get 18, 20.
Well, Sadhna, you were telling me there's someone out there offering notes at more than UPB plus,
Yeah,
all the
those-
back penalties. So, I mean, it's crazy. The pricing is absolutely nuts right now. In general, no? Yes, no?
Yep, those loans sit on the
Like
market.
they're buying non-performing notes more at the same yields that I would buy for performing notes, which I think is
amateurs.
really interesting.
Yeah, they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Are you buying these in an auction setting or is it just a fixed price?
So this example here goes back to when the market tanked in 2009, 10, and 11. And the banks were not necessarily totally failing. So when a bank gets in trouble, FDIC comes in and looks at the bank and decides, okay, we're shutting you down. Wells Fargo, you're buying this bank. And FDIC takes all the bad assets and just sells them on an auction. Some hedge fund buys all that debt, as she mentioned, and they take it and they start calling people like you and me who are signed up with them and go, hey, I got this loan here in Struthers, Ohio. Got this nice property. The unpaid principal balance is $47,000. You interested in buying it? And then you start asking them questions about it. Same thing today. Now you could buy the loan from that fund. Or say you call up Sadhna, hey Sadhna, do you have any loans for sale? Yeah, I got a couple of loans for sale. What are you looking for? You want non-performing? Do you want performing? Are you just want to look here in Nevada? Do you want to buy California? Do you want to buy Ohio, Florida, Texas? What kind of a yield are you looking for? What's your comfort level? And let me see what I have. And so, and that's how it goes. You're in a setting like this. You meet other investors, and Tracy, is that right? Carrie, hey, I got some loans for sale. You go, oh, I'm interested in buying some loans. Carrie, let me talk to you about the loans you have for sale.
Question just on the yield that you're showing right here. Is this just over time? I guess I'm trying to figure out so you have a 9%, 9.85 interest rate, right? But you got a 22% yield on your investment. Like, is that just over multiple years?
That's annually. I think that's your annual cash on cash.
That was kind of, that cash on cash was how much I paid versus what I'm buying. And then I can do a separate yield calculation to calculate how much I paid, how much I'm going to collect and get paid off at the end.
Over time.
Over time.
Over time. Okay, I gotcha.
Okay, so going back to strategies, you could get a reperforming, which would be talk to the borrower, see what the situation is, get them paying. Can you make $300 payment every month? And then after 1 year, we'll evaluate again and see where you are. So you're still getting the money coming in, and then you can do a loan mod. Like I said, you can capitalize that interest that they did not pay. Interest and late fees, and there might be charges that you paid on their behalf. Maybe there were taxes that were not paid. And that's one of the other things that we do during due diligence, not that I want to go back and forth, but when you do due diligence, you want to make sure that the taxes are paid. If they're not paid, that's another negotiating point for you. Because the person you're buying for, the hedge fund you're buying for, say, hey, they have $7,000 in unpaid taxes. I want a discount. Because now you have to shell out that money, right? Otherwise, 3 years, what happens in 3 years, it'll go to tax sale. And you don't want that. So you can get a reperforming and then keep it for cash flow. or resell. So once I get a loan reperforming, I have them performing for a year, I do a loan modification, then I say, Dawn, I have a great note, do you want to buy it?
Sure.
And I will sell it at a higher price, right? I'm not going to sell it for $24,000. Doesn't make sense to me, right? I'm going to sell it for a bit more. So now I've collected payments, $300. That is, just a scenario that I created. So I've collected all that money, and now the loan is worth more because I've capitalized. When I did a loan mod, now it's not $47,000, maybe it's $60,000. I'm going to sell it on the basis of $60,000. So Dawn is going to buy it because she can collect $60,000 plus all the interest on that UPB. So it's worth more. You can do that with real estate. Yeah, in real estate there's appreciation, I know. But then we sold it for $36,000. Profit $12,000. If you don't look at anything else, somebody comes along and says, you have a non-performing loan, I want a non-performing loan. Okay, I have one, but this is what I want. I can turn around and sell that loan for $36,000. And trust me, there are people who buy it. And there's my return on investment.
Would you say that this is more like buying yourself a part-time job versus passive investing? Like the amount of time it took for you to do this, is it usually pretty short? Because I actually don't buy any institutional paper at all, and rarely the non-performings. So
now it would be a part-time job for you if you were managing it yourself.
Right.
That's why we exist. We do servicing.
Right.
You have your loans with us.
Yes,
You know.
I need to get those others. I'll tell you what.
So we do the dialing and calling. We do the negotiation. Then we call you and ask, Dawn, what do you want to do? And you tell our customer service rep, this is how I want to do this. Were the taxes paid? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you guys are providing such a great service because I've been managing a small portfolio of notes since 2009, and I know a good company when I see it. And I've dealt with a lot of nightmares, and I still am a little bit. So just saying,
Thank you.
we're lucky these people are here. This is really lucky.
Oh yeah, so just missed that. So if I was to keep it for cash flow after it started performing, that would be the interest that we would earn.
So before you go, so some of you do, say, wholesaling. So you're finding a property, you're finding an investor who wants to buy it, you're making yourself a quick $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 on the deal. So the same thing here with the notes. We could go buy these notes from a fund and say we bought, like, we had the capital and we bought 20 or 30 of them all at once. So we could get even a better discount by buying in bulk. We can turn around and sell those one by one to you. We don't have to mark them up a lot. We could mark them all up $10,000. And as fast as we're selling them, that's how fast we're capitalizing on the cash that we have. In fact, the person I learned the business from in 2007, that's what he did. He would buy a whole pool of loans from GMAC or Franklin Bank, and then he turned around and sell them all out to us investors who were on the phone, and he was training, and that's how we learned the business, and that's how he made his money.
Velocity of money. So I could turn it around 2 days later, and I bought it for $24,000. If I sold it for $26,000, I made $2,000. If I did that 5 times a month, I made good money. And a lot of people do that, by the way. We're not in the business of selling loans. We only assist people. If somebody calls me, because we have so many investors, call me and say, can you help me sell this loan? Sure, let me find you somebody. I have one now, right now, in my inbox for 10% interest. He insists he won't sell for more than 10%. Okay, so performing loan. This is the one we bought too in August 2023. Purchased from a fund. UPB, the unpaid principal balance was $49,000 and change. Note rate was only 6.5%, which is still not bad. It's still a very good note. The payment was $364.18. The remaining term was 250 months. So we purchased at $38,283. It's more expensive now. And this is a performing loan. So this is already paying. At the time we bought it, immediately, within 30 days, I got my $364.18. So that's the benefit, because now I don't have to dial and call. This person is set up on recurring ACH. Money keeps coming. This is my mailbox money. Yield 10%. So because I got the discount, the yield is 10%, which is not bad.
So,
Sorry.
so in order to do this, I use a financial calculator, and so the seller, the fund, who we're servicing their loan, they tell us, we have some loans for sale, so they give us a tape, and I decide, hey, I want to buy a loan. So we look at the loans and go, what do you think about this, and what do you think about that? So we go through, and today, your money is earning like 0% interest in the bank. We have a lot of money in the bank, and I'm getting like 20%, or 2%, 2 cents, or 20 cents interest, you know. So here, the way I look at it, anything over 0% interest is better than 0% interest. So I calculated what I think that the lender is willing to sell for. So I said, okay, let me put in I want 10% interest minimum. The note's 6.5%, I want 10%. So I back into that purchase price number so that I get 10% interest on the loan.
Based on a discount now.
And so what's your yield if it pays off 6 months from now?
Yeah, so that's my my difference, right?
The spread.
So spread.
So then that yield goes through the roof.
Mm-hmm. That goes through the roof.
Yeah. That's
Exactly.
the nice thing about those discounted notes.
Yeah, I wish they would pay off the next day. Turn
Yeah.
around and say, you know what, you sold my note, I'm paying it off. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I just made another 10,000 here.
Uh-huh.
And then this is the recent purchase which we just purchased in October. So not even 2 months, it's less than 2 months. UPB of 17,000, I said. It was a small note, I was just doing somebody a favor. And we never buy, so you have to have your criteria, right? So our criteria is at least 10%. I'm not buying something that's 8% or 9%, you know. It has to be at least 10%, so then it can keep performing. And this is a performing loan. So obviously I paid more for it. The note rate was 7%. So the yield should be more than 10 or more, not the interest rate, just to clarify, in case I said that. Payment was $200.55, 118 months remaining. I purchased it for $13,500. My yield is 12.71%. I don't care if it's 17,000, it'll pay off. 118 months is a long time. You know, that's how you build your portfolio. 17,000 here, 47,000 here, and with 100,000, I can buy 3 or 4 loans, right? And I diversified. If one stops making a payment, I'm still getting payment from the others.
How liquid are they? Like how easy are they to, like
To sell?
if you buy one and then you have like an opportunity come up and you want to sell it real quick, how long does that take typically?
Depends on what you want for it. Like this guy, he's
So the more you
selling.
discount it, then
How
the
much
quicker it
discount will you
sells.
give? Yeah. If you have a $30,000 loan and you say, I'll sell it to you for 28, I'm probably going to say no, right? So it's what your reserve price is. Now, if you say, I'll take whatever discount and say, okay, I want 26,000 because I want a higher yield, it'll sell right away. It's everything like houses too, right? You price them right, you sell them fast. Sell them under 30 days. You overprice them, they sit on the market.
More or less, how long does it takes for the transaction to go through? Like he was looking for a deal, you need money right away, right?
Yeah, and then, people get time to do due diligence too. So if you want to sell me a note, I'll say, okay, let me do my due diligence. I need 15 days. And you should insist on 10 to 15 days due diligence because you want to make sure you've checked their taxes, insurance, that the house isn't a vacant lot, that there is actually a house. Because Google Maps is not 100% accurate or current either.
Have somebody drive by, as she said, make sure that there's actually a house on the lot. We had a portfolio of loans we were servicing for an investor years ago, and they bought all these loans, and I went to the tax assessor's website and pulled up, they had a picture, and it's like, there's a big hole in the roof. That house had a fire.
Okay.
And the investor didn't even know, because they didn't do their due diligence.
Yeah, we just recently had not couple months, 4 or 5 months ago. This borrower pays like clockwork, right? He keeps making payments, keeps making payment, and one day we get a notice that the house burned down. I'm like, oh my God, what now? We get a payment. Like, that's great. And then the guy calls and tells us, my house burned down. So I want to pay off my loan. Obviously, he collected on his insurance, paid his mortgage off. Guess what? I would have to wait about 200 months to collect on that loan, but I got paid right away. So, but not all borrowers are that great. He might have said, you know what, I don't have a house, what am I paying for?
Yeah.
Do you buy new notes too, or only seasoned ones?
Have you bought any new notes? Not brand new, we haven't. We personally buy seasoned. There are a lot of people who buy at the closing table.
Yeah.
So,
Just wondering if you guys do.
yeah, no, I haven't. We personally haven't. That would be great. You collect 360 payments.
Now, on that last scenario you gave, what didn't the insurance companies? I mean, you were listed as a last payee mortgagee, so wouldn't the check come in your name and? I mean, so you just.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily in our name because we have to keep our servicing business separate from our portfolio. So we have a different LLC.
Right. So, I mean, usually if someone's house burns down, they can't just walk away with the money without involving you traditionally, right?
Yeah.
So,
And we were the lender anyway, so we would get paid off. So we had security there. Plus we had the land. Land's worth a lot these days. A lot of people are selling land notes in Texas. They're going crazy selling land notes. They're buying big lots of acres. Like there's one, our son bought 382 acres, and he's going to parcel it hopefully and sell it 1 acre parcels.
Your
Yes,
son bought land in Texas, but does he control the subsurface rights?
subsurface.
In Texas,
Yes. No,
Yeah,
he didn't buy it in, he bought it 382 in New Mexico. But in what I was saying is I combined two things, sorry. In Texas, a lot of people are buying notes. We just came back from a conference in Texas and people are just going crazy over land notes. It's been happening for the last 2 years. In Texas, they're selling raw land, and then some developers are putting in electric and utilities and selling it for a lot more and subdividing it.
what do you think of those land notes in general?
We don't buy them because, see, to me, my personal opinion is if somebody's living in a house, they're more likely to pay on that if they have a problem like divorce, right? They're more likely pay on that house versus an investment, a land, right? They don't live there, so they'll default on that. So it's high risk. And
So don't you think most of these people buying those notes up are more on the newer side of the business?
they are.
Yeah.
They are, absolutely. I'm not new. I've been in this business.
So by that same logic, are you only buying owner-occupied notes?
Not necessarily. We're buying owner-occupied and business. So we don't focus on that. I'm just looking at how stable is the person paying.
Yeah, what's your take on a contract for deed versus notes? Do you buy them both or do you?
We buy them both, yeah. But my preference is if I have a choice, if the borrower stops making payment, I would convert it into a note and mortgage. So where do you find notes? You can create your own note, right? So wholesalers, if you are buying a property and you're going to wholesale it, you could also private finance it. You know, you're going to sell it to somebody, you can say, I'll finance it to you too. So you could create a note. You can buy bank notes from lenders, from hedge funds, private investors, mortgage companies, mortgage servicers like us, private mortgage insurance companies. So there are a lot of options, and friends, you know, your friends and family, real estate groups like this. There are a lot of real estate groups, and you can meet people who want to sell. So just a little bit more about us, and we're licensed in 48 states and Puerto Rico for servicing. We're licensed in 37 states to originate and broker. If you want to look us up, go to NMLS and you'll see all our licenses. If we had any violations, everything is there about every company. And if you ever buy notes and get into notes, please always use a licensed servicer, because there are a lot of people out there doing servicing without licenses. Like I said, check it out on NMLS. And this is just our map. Licensed brokers. And that's it.
Thank you.
Can I is there time for any questions? I wanted to ask you just your personal opinion, because you guys have been around for a while, to see the trends of things from a regulatory standpoint and different things with CFPB and all that. Do you think do you see any extra regulatory risk being a bank, a note holder, a lender, or is it highly dependent on the state and all that?
So, when Dodd-Frank got passed in 2008, they came out with servicing rules in 2013, which they have been amending and changing. So that's like my little Bible on what we should do as a servicer. It also kind of helps us as note investors as well. So the CFPB comes up with rules. So you learn new things as you go through those. Not necessarily. So the CFPB is more interested in going after the banks and funds and some of the large servicers like Auckland, Human Travel. I don't know how many times. The states are more likely to go after investors. So as an example, the Pennsylvania AG, who's now the governor, sued Harbor Portfolio, and Harbor Portfolio is a fund that bought a lot of REO properties from FHA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and resold them. So they sold them, they were all land contracts, they all had the same interest rate, 10% interest across the board. Some might have been 12, they're between 10 and 12% interest. All the paperwork looks, great, like they did. They have truth in lending and all the documents that the borrower signed. I don't know, I don't remember if they did, but I know there were some investors who made the purchasers pay all the back taxes, rehabilitate the property and such to buy these contracts. So they basically preyed on people who couldn't afford to buy a property and get a loan from the bank. Well, in PA, they have what they call Act 6. You can't charge more than 6% interest on a loan. And every month, they have an index that they go through. So every month they publish what the interest rate is that month that you can charge. So it could be higher, because I bought a loan from a hedge fund and I looked it up and it's like it was 9% interest. So I used that and I went back to the month that the loan would have been created, and the interest rate was 9% per the state law. So the AG sued Harbor Portfolio, got millions or, probably a lot of money out of Harbor Portfolio, then went and found all the individual investors and contacted them. We got a sheet with these loans that we were servicing in PA and said, all these investors have to convert their land contracts to a note and mortgage, and they have to reduce the interest rate, and they have to give principal credit for all the interest they collected over the 6%.
Holy cow.
So that's where the state steps in. PA also sued Vision, another big company that was doing lease options, because they were making people pay like $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 down, and then they were finding, according to the tenants, they were finding an excuse to evict them and then resell the property to somebody else. So a bunch of them got together and sued, and this was in, I think it was, I can't recall the capital city of Pennsylvania. So anyway, the AG went after Harbor or Vision for all of that, and actually forced them to deed the properties to the people that had been wronged. So the states are stepping up their regulation. In Georgia, you can't even touch anything without being licensed, or you have to assign the loan to a servicer or another entity. So just like the states are stepping up, like rules about foreclosure, tenants' rights, so you're making it harder for you to evict tenants who aren't paying, making you do all of these repairs. That's where, for us owning the mortgage notes, we don't have to worry about all the tenant issues, all the property issues, because that falls all on the homeowner.
What kind of licensing do you need to have?
Huh?
You saying there about licensing and things like that. What kind of, what kind of licensing do you need to have for that?
So we're licensed to either be a lender, which allows us to do lending, brokering, and servicing, depending upon the state, or we have a mortgage license, a broker license, and a servicing license, and maybe even a collection agency license in that state to be able to collect on loans, to enforce the terms of the note and mortgage by foreclosing, and also so that she can work with somebody like you to originate brand new loans.
So is that like a class, a certificate, or just something you can buy? Is that like you just go out and buy? Well,
Oh no, you get it from the state. We have to do,
I think every state's different.
every state is different. And the NMLS has every company and all the states that they're licensed in and what their license is. And you have to apply through the NMLS to get licensed in that state. You have to go through a background check, the fingerprints, credit report, all of that.
But it's just basically paying for it.
Correct.
Okay.
And taking an exam.
No. But yeah, I mean, it's like anything else. You just basically, you pay, you study, you learn, but it's not one of these you need, because I'm a developer, so they're telling me when I became one, you're sitting in this class for X, Y, Z amount of hours. You're doing this amount of work, or if you're only going to do under $10 million a year, this is the class you need. You go above that, these are the extra classes you need, and along with hundreds of thousands of dollars in certificates. So this is not that.
Yeah, and Kevin is licensed, so 48 states, he's the qualifying individual for the company. So he has to take yearly he has to take
48 tests.
continuing education
Oh, okay.
in most of the states. Some of them have it, don't have it. Like I think Nevada doesn't have it, continuing education. But you have to have those.
But for context, these people to run the servicing company they do, didn't you tell me it was like over $300,000 a year in licensing and courses and all that?
Licensing
And
and
getting audited
bonds.
and all this, oh
Yep.
my gosh.
You have
It's
to
a
get
big
bonds.
deal.
Yeah, you have to renew licenses every year.
Yeah.
You have to renew your bonds. You have to do your continuing education. There's a lot of regulation. So to go back to your question,
Yeah.
a lot of regulation. It just gets worse every year.
Right. So if you buy institutional paper and then they create federal guidelines for institutions, that's going to inure to your, just because you bought it, or, I mean, if they say, okay, like they did in 2020 or is that 2021, nobody can foreclose. No institutional foreclosures allowed. I was able to foreclose on a private note. I bought a seller carry note, then I went to foreclosure, but nobody else was. So,
Yeah, so
so
once-
if you're holding bank paper
Mhm.
and then you've had it for 2 years, but then tomorrow they decide to say no institutions can foreclose, does that apply to you because you're holding it, or not because you've had it for 2 years?
Yeah, yes and no. So when we buy paper, if it was originated by Wells Fargo, Bank of America, First Franklin, it's just a portfolio loan that may have been securitized and whatever, but it was bank originated. It's not a so-called government secured, insured loan. Okay, so the CARES Act didn't apply. However, if it was originated by if it was an FHA originated loan, now I have to follow even though you own it, I still have to make sure that we're not violating any FHA guidelines through loss mitigation and foreclosure. So if the if the feds impose a moratorium, so theirs were Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac owned loans. But now you have to go through and find out, okay, does my loan kind of apply there? If it maybe, maybe not. So that's where an attorney would be able to help you and say,
Yeah,
you can foreclose it, no, you can't.
gotcha.
And to answer this gentleman's question back there about where residential properties, personally, I don't care whether it's your personal residence or you're renting it out to somebody else. You're still responsible for paying the mortgage, whether your tenant is paying you or not. So that's where it doesn't matter if it's a residential owner occupied or a residential rental property. And I'll just add one more thing. Me personally, my personal philosophy with notes, I will bend over backwards to work with a borrower who's struggling to pay, as long as they want to help themselves. Because the way I put it is that I'm not foreclosing on them, they are forcing me to foreclose on them. They chose that decision. I didn't. I'm willing to work something out with them. Now, and we work with investors who are everywhere from my philosophy to like, I don't care, I want the property. If they didn't pay today, tomorrow I'm going to start foreclosure. So, and everybody in between.
Sure.
So, who had their hand raised? Yeah.
So generally speaking, what kind of fees are involved in the management? I mean, say I come in and say, hey, I've got X amount of money to spend, I want to invest in notes, but I'm not looking for a part-time job as a debt collector or whatever. And so, how would that impact some of the average returns that, you were kind of giving us as some examples?
So that also depends. If it's a performing loan, it's $25 a month. Now, if you want us to pay the taxes and insurance every month too, it's an additional $10, so it's $35. If it's a non-performing loan, so we have two levels. It's a high touch or a non-performing. High touch is they're 2 months behind. So it goes up to 45. And then when it gets non-performing, it's 4 months delinquent, it's 95. Because now there's more work involved. We have to do more workouts with them, try to reach them more, send them homeowners options letters. And, there's all kinds of regulatory stuff that we have to do behind the scenes.
That's pretty reasonable, yeah.
So your percentage would vary based on your cost for the loan, essentially.
Correct.
Your prices
So
are a dollar.
that affects your yield. But if you were to do a brand new, say, promissory, you're writing a promissory note for somebody, right? We help the lenders write it so that the borrower ends up paying the servicing fee. So, and that also depends whether you can put it in the contract or not. Because in Texas, for example, if you have an interest rate of 9.99%, you can collect servicing fee from that, from the borrower. You can put it in the contract. However, if it's 10%, you cannot. Then it's a high cost loan. So it just goes back to all of you are familiar with high cost loans and stuff. So
And for
that's,
anybody who's going to originate a loan to a consumer, if you're carrying paper on your property or you're just making a private loan, you gotta go to these people for, underwriting, what's the process?
QMLO?
I'm sorry.
RMLO.
Yeah, you've gotta go through that process or else you can get in big trouble.
We try to keep our lenders out of trouble because if they get into trouble, we get into trouble. They have a lawsuit, we get pulled into it.
Sure.
So it helps everybody. So we do a lot of education.
So what do you charge for that service?
For what service?
Screening the borrower,
The
12
RMLO,
underwriting,
So
basically.
we underwrite, it's $650 for underwriting, and it is, we do the state-specific documents, and that's about $650 as well. So, but it's all paid by the borrower, so when you have a closing disclosure, it goes all on the borrower's closing disclosure, they end up paying it. So it doesn't cost the lender anything.
we have to front it, but then
Yeah.
at closing.
Just like if you were buying your own residence, you're paying all the closing costs, the lender's charging you for loan origination, title report, credit report, you're paying for the appraisal, everything.
Underwriting and origination and all that, so you are paying that anyway.
What about the due diligence on an existing loan? Do you guys do that, or is that responsibility for the lender?
That's the lender's responsibility. We'll, guide you if you want help, like I said,
That's here.
somebody calls me and asks me a question, I'll never say, don't ask me a question, I'll answer that question. But I'll also guide them. There are a lot of courses out there, and there are a lot of people who do a really good job of it. And, they cost like $300-400 for a 2-day, 16-hour course, and you get everything. You get a checklist, you get all the information you need on due diligence. It's a wonderful course.
Of the loans in your portfolio, or at least that you've had experience with, would you say that generally speaking, the ones that pay off early are outliers compared to those that have, 10, 20 years left on the loan? Where does, how frequently out of say 100 loans are you seeing those loans pay off early?
We see at least 5 or 6 every day. And
Out of how many? Out of a pool of how many are you looking at overall?
about 5,000.
Okay.
So performing loans, right? So most of the time it's the performing loans that pay off. And so it really depends. So say you have a loan of 12%, right? And you can get a 10% or 8% loan. You refinance. So the lender gets paid off. That's one scenario. Another scenario is, you got a big tax return when you filed your taxes, paid off, like $17,000. And, anyone can pay that off easily, right? So there are a lot of reasons people will pay off. So they're not necessarily outliers. It's the bigger ones, the $1.2 million loans that, we service a lot of California loans. And those are the ones that stay there for a longer time. Smaller amount loans pay off faster.
I would say it would go like with the average, people either move every, 5 to 7 years, or they'll refinance, or they'll take out, say that they'll have credit card debt, so they'll refinance to pay it all off, so to get rid of that, or maybe they have a HELOC and they decide they want to get rid of it all and they'll refinance. As a loan originator, I had a junior lien that I was collecting money on, and the woman couldn't pay, so I was accepting like $100 a month for a long time. And finally, during the refinance boom, after we got our license, realized it's like I need to start getting involved in helping people get refinanced. Although that would take away some of the servicing business, I'll get paid, broker fee, and et cetera. So I took her as an example because I had a junior lien. I did all the numbers and worked with her. I said, I can get you refinanced. I can get you a loan at the same term or less. Pay me off, and you'll be paying less money, and you'll have a better interest rate. So I did that. So not only did I get paid off, I got a broker fee from the wholesale lender.
Yeah.
Of the performing loans that you purchase or that you see on the market now, you're discussing how the non-performing loans are even selling at a premium, it seems, these days. How about the performing loans? Are you buying them at a discount, at par? Where are those loans, generally speaking? Are people buying them for like an annuity, and then it's a kind of a bonus potentially if it pays off early?
So there's some people who do buy at par. There's some people who buy 0% loans, okay? Because they're going to collect it over time. You get a discount, and then you collect, so you're still making money, right? So they're selling, 10, like I was showing the example, the newer example, this note rate was 7%, and so we are getting a yield of 12.71%. Right? So we got a discount. So you get a discount. It's common practice in this business to get a discount. If I don't get a discount, it's like, going to Kohl's and say, what? I don't even get a 15% discount? I don't want to buy it. So, I see that. But then there are others who don't know what they're doing. And I was telling Dawn about it. This one person wants to sell it above the UPV. He says, there's all this interest that you can collect that hasn't been paid and late fee, and I want to sell it. I'm like, no, absolutely
Yeah,
not.
so if it gets paid off, you just lost money.
Exactly.
Right? Boom.
Yeah.
Who
would do that?
That's a fast way. Yeah, a lot of people are doing crazy things.
Yeah, because they're too new to the market.
Yeah.
So let's say, I'll go back in the beginning when I would buy loans at a steep discount and I'm negotiating with the homeowner. So for me, things like the accrued interest, late fees, and all the other charges that I did not pay for when I bought the loan, that's all a carrot on the end of the stick to encourage the borrower to make payment, be current. You can do creative things like say, okay, so for every 12 months of on-time payment, I will reduce these charges by X amount over, say, the next 5 years to encourage them to keep paying. And so the other thing, we report to the credit bureau. So that helps them build their credit or it helps them damage their credit depending upon their payment history. So there's lots of creative ways that you can work with loans. I know these large funds are buying huge pools from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and they're paying par, whatever the UPV is, because they're counting on collecting all of the taxes that have been paid, all the accrued interest, legal charges, everything that they can tack onto the loan. That's what they're banking on collecting.
There's a lot of different concepts and notes. It's so interesting. I just love the business. I have a property in Sun Valley. Paid $450,000 for it, and it's paid down. And so the loan on it is less than $250,000. I can wrap that. I put it on the market it's going on the market tomorrow for sale, and I'll wrap it. I'll sell or finance it. So I still have a mortgage that I'm paying, like $1,500 a month. But if I sell it to somebody at 8%, then I get to keep that extra spread.
How are you mitigating your risk of acceleration on the underlying first?
Well, I pay it. It's
No,
mine.
I mean, due on clause.
If they call it due and sale.
Due on sale, I'll pay it off.
Oh, yeah, so
Yeah.
people, that's the right way. If you're gonna do it, you have to have the funds, cause
Yeah.
all the big sub-2 thing.
As somebody once said, there's no due on sale jail. And even during the crisis, the banks, if they're collecting their monthly payment, that's a loan they don't wanna be bothered with. Oh, somebody sold it on a wrap or whatever, I don't care, as long as we're getting our money and we're paying our investors, we're paying the funds, that's all they care about.
In all these years, we've had one loan that was called for due on sale clause, and that was because I think I told you the lender made a mistake. He thought he could roll the money in instead of pay off the loan. So it's never been called. I'm not saying that it won't get called. It could. There's always that risk.
But you have the ability to deal with that. There's a lot of
But
those-
Bank of America and Wells Fargo, like Kevin said, they're getting their payment. They don't care. What do you think? They're sitting there seeing who's sending the money?
Well, in
That
some,
goes to
in
the
some
accounting
circles,
department.
in some circles, in some areas of the country, they're increasing.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too, that
Yeah.
with AI now, they can very easily
Right.
just follow any sort of recording, and if the money's out at 2% and not, they can lend it out at 6%, they have an incentive to
Yeah, that
be on
can,
top. And
yeah,
Or
that
they
can
have
happen.
to meet their reserves at the end of the
do,
month
so.
or something.
Yeah, that can happen, but I haven't seen
But
it.
you're not worried.
I
about
personally
it.
haven't seen it.
So that brings up the point that owning loans, having notes, and buying them, say we bought this one at 6.5% interest and we're getting 10%.
7.
We're making our money the same way the banks make their money. They borrow money from the feds at 3%, they loan it to you at 6%. They're getting the interest rate spread.
Do you ever, or have seen, any ability to collateralize your note assets essentially to say, hey, look, I've got X tied up in notes, in loans. I'm in a pinch, whatever, or it makes sense to get a loan. Is someone going to lend on these as an asset?
Yeah, you were talking about
So
that
hypothecation.
earlier.
Yeah,
Hypothecation.
There are, I personally don't know who, but there are banks and lenders that will lend you money by collateralizing your loans.
Yeah, absolutely.
I-
It's happening a lot these days too. So there are people are also selling partials based on hypothecation.
Have you come across, you've been here 5 years now, so do you have attorneys that are good in real estate with seller financing, with notes? Sometimes it's hard to find attorneys that really understand this space. Have you come across any locally here yet?
Yeah, we have, what's his name, Nick?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a network of attorneys we work with because we don't do foreclosures, right?
Right.
We send it to an attorney because they know the state laws. Every state is different again. And so we have a network.
I just find I
attorneys, so-
usually have to pay my attorney to train him with what he's supposed to do for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
If you don't get the right attorney, yes, that happens.
So what I learned from my mentor was, and I got beat up for one of our call and stuff, but when you're in the note business, you want an attorney that enforces creditors' rights. Forget about real estate. they're enforcing creditors' rights. So if their job is to do foreclosures for the banks, that's who you want. That's their bread and butter. They do foreclosures all day long on the bank. Now they may do other things like bankruptcy. So that's a whole nother subject. But if you have to file bankruptcy, or your note borrower files bankruptcy, you want an attorney who's experienced in bankruptcy, no matter what side of the table you're on, who represents your interest. Whether you're the debtor who filed bankruptcy or whether you're the creditor trying to collect, you want an attorney who represents your side. Same with the note business. You want a creditor's rights attorney.
And also, for example, in North Carolina, South Carolina are attorney states.
Right.
So you have to get an attorney to do your closing. You don't want to get that attorney for foreclosure.
Yeah.
So a lot of people do that. They'll hire somebody who's charging less, but they don't know anything about it, right? You don't want to hire an attorney who does contracts. That's all they learned, to do contracts. And you hire them for foreclosure, you made a mistake. So you have to educate them then.
Great.
Can you speak a little bit on when the borrower files leakage? Have you had any recent cases where that happened and how it panned out?
So 1 second, Ginger, I think you're out of time, huh?
We're doing okay.
You're doing okay?
Yeah, another 5 minutes.
Okay.
We have 16 years of experience in dealing with
Bankruptcies.
bankruptcy.
I personally love bankruptcies. Bankruptcy loans are great. They file chapter 13, they pay the trustee pays me, like clockwork. It's like government sending you a check every month, right? The trustee keeps sending you the money. The borrower stops making payments to the trustee, guess what? They get dismissed by the trustee. Now it's the trustee's headache, not mine.
Yeah.
I'll pay more for a bankruptcy loan any day.
Because at least it appears that many of the loans you're buying are at the tail end of their, well, I won't say tail end, but midlife, let's call it. Are you seeing, is the return, the split between the return of premium or the return of principal and interest, because at the end of a loan, is that, are you still receiving that? So at the end, you're getting principal back that they're paying. Are you now not receiving that as ordinary income? Are you just taxed on the interest part of it, or are you having to pay taxes on the entire payment? Does that make sense?
No, so you get taxed on interest and late fees.
Okay. But say again, you're at the tail end of a note, and of the payment, principal makes up a larger share of the payment than the interest. You would not have to pay taxes on that principal returned, even though the original origination may have been a higher number.
For 90,000, yeah, because in the beginning you collect more interest.
So there are some savings there. It's not
IRS.
like you're paying taxes on $200 a month. You're paying taxes on whatever portion of the 200 isn't
Correct.
principal.
Yeah, so you
which could be
amortize
larger.
it. Yes.
But then you
That is correct.
technically, don't you have capital gain?
Well, there is a small interest part,
That's the capital gains
The-
tax.
the discount of the principal that you're paying along with the interest you collected. So there is a small portion
Got it.
that
Okay.
you would calculate.
So depending on the discount from the UPB.
Correct.
Okay.
That-
Not necessarily the original principal
No,
value.
just the spread that you purchased.
Got it.
So in this example, we got a discount of what,
Essentially the price of
$4,000, $3,500.
$3,500. So over the period of time, we would just pay interest or taxes on that fractional principal that we received over the 118 months, along with whatever interest and late fees. So, and back to when we started the business, a lot of those loans that were sold, they were in the beginning stages. So a lot were originated in 2005, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and were being sold. even still today, if you were to go to some lenders who are selling loans, you can find loans that have not been long. They don't have a lot of seasoning. Be 12 months, 24 months, 36 months.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask one more question on the BK. If it's a 7, and let's say there is a significant decline in the market, is there any danger of BK cramming your balance down? Have you experienced that?
That happens when the market went down drastically. There were a few borrowers who went to court and said, my property isn't worth what it is, and I have the second lien. So they did get wiped out. So that's one of the risks that you're taking.
Have you seen first being crammed down throughout that
I
time
have-
frame?
No, I have not. So, because, as an example, you have a $400,000 property, right? You got a $300,000 loan because you put down 25% or less. You put down 20%. So you already have equity built in it. So I haven't we haven't seen that, but in the downturn it did happen. Not too many.
I have experienced junior lien cram down, where at the end of the bankruptcy, you get paid something. Could be $1,000, $2,000, $2,500. You get sent a check by the trustee and says your loan's paid off because they deemed it unsecured.
Yes.
But your unsecured lien was senior to all the other unsecured debt. I have experienced that.
I was curious on the first because we had such a significant collapse here.
Yes.
Where even the cushion you had of equity when you wrote the first went into the red.
So from an accounting perspective, going back to your question, that would be the earned discount. So like Kevin was saying, it's fractional,
Yeah.
but so that would be considered capital gain.
Because you're splitting up the gain essentially across the
Number of years.
the number of payments that are left on the note.
Correct.
And then assuming it paid off sooner, it would all just come due upon payment of the prepayment of the note.
Right.
Early payment, okay.
Yeah, and your CPA can help you figure that out.
No problem there.
Yeah. Our software does that for our loans, not for the investor loans, because we don't know what their base price was, what they paid for it. A lot of times. Sometimes we'll get the purchase agreement, but most
If they're not
times-
originating or purchasing through you, you may not have the original details sufficient.
Exactly.
to
You don't have the HUD.
Very nice.
Thank you.